Okay, so now we're going to kind of look at workflow and an iteration under our model. So the first thing to know here is that what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to look at the current iteration. And as someone who's working on this, I'm just going to pick, as a developer working on this, I'm going to pick 14069. As an admin, I want first-time sellers to have a 1-star rating. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my terminal here, and I'm going to get checkout branch. What was that? 14069. 14069. So now we're working on a new branch called 14069. So there's a lot of things going on in this ticket. It seems simple, but we don't have a concept of anything right now. We have no database, data model whatsoever. It's just completely blank. So we have this idea that we want admins, which would be as opposed to regular users. We want the concept of admins. We want the concept of sellers, which are just basically users because there's no difference, and then rating. So you'll see a number of things going on here, and you really need to have a familiarity with Amplify and GraphQL to kind of get this. But we're going to create a new model called user, and we're basically going to have a number of fields: email, updated at, created at, a unique ID, and groups. Oh, and then we're going to have the concept of rating, which is going to be an int. And I can't remember if is it int or integer. GraphQL int. Int. I was right. I always get that confused. All right, so we now have this modeled correctly. So what we have to do to get this model actually up and I want to go over another thing. So we've said this is a model, which these again you have to have a familiarity with Amplify to understand this. And then we're basically saying allow the owner to update and to update this, and the create, obviously there's nothing to own, so create's a little bit different. So basically when you create it, it automatically appends the ID to the owner field, and by default the owner field is owner, but we change that to ID. So automatically Amplify is going to append the created ID to this ID field basically. Then we have this idea of groups. So anyone in the groups, the admin's group will be able to update or delete a user. As a matter of fact, we probably don't want to even allow the deletion of users. So we're just going to actually delete that too, so just no one accidentally deletes a user. Now, this groups is actually a little bit different than this groups. We're going to keep them in sync, but this refers to the cognito group. So we're going to add we're going to create a way to add users to the admin cognito group. This is the DynamoDB field, and we're going to keep them in sync just so we don't have to keep going back to the cognito pool. But the authorization takes place with the cognito pool, not DynamoDB. So what do we actually have to do to get this up and running? Well, let's go to our README here. And the first thing we need to do is we need to start the back end, which I've done. Here's the back end running. It's watching for changes. And then here's the front end running, which is just this. So I did stage Kodi npm run start. And you can see it is up and running right here. It's running right here. But what do we have to do to get this model deployed? If you go back to the README, you're going to see work on issues, and you see this if you need to make back-end changes. Well, we do need to make back-end changes. We need to get that model up there. So if we come over here, grab that command, and we're just going to go to our terminal, and we're going to run Gunnerfy deploy backend. And I'll show you what this does in a minute. You'll actually see it right here. This is the build directory where Amplify puts stuff automatically. And what's going to happen is you're going to see that it's going to create some stuff in here based on this schema that we've created. As a matter of fact, it's already done that. See, it breaks it out into, this is the one that's generated. So it has a number of more options like filtering, sorting, all this stuff. It creates the input for creating a user. It basically creates your API definition right here. and it puts it all into subscriptions. And now it's actually deploying this up to AppSync right as we speak. So that's going to take care of deploying that. While it's working on that, I want to show you some boilerplate that we want to add to actually get admin Cognito groups working. So I'm going to close this a little bit here, and we have this idea right here where we have this handle sign-in handler, and you can see right here it's checking to see if they're in Cognito groups, and if not, it can add to group and do all this cool stuff. This is incomplete because we have a bunch of stuff commented out. I'm just going to go grab some code from another app that is identical, because we do this quite frequently. What I'm going to do here is take update user, handle sign in. Okay, I'm going to take this all the way down to handle sign in. So we have this all the way here. I'm just going to paste that in there, this is just boilerplate code, which is going to, this is what happens when someone signs in. Takes care of updating a user, creating a new user. Okay, this one doesn't have application status, so we'll get rid of that. The basic simple stuff when someone logs in for the first time. Now I think I need to add a couple more things here. Let me see. Yep, I need to add QL. And then we need to, this is from the generated code that you're going to see right here. When I paste these import statements, you'll see how it's grayed out. That's because it auto-generates this, and we have some mutations in there to, oh, it hasn't actually updated yet. Give it 1 second. It's still gonna, it does this after it's all finished. So while that's working, we just gotta wait for a few more minutes for this to clean up this stuff. I can walk through this a little bit as we're waiting for this to clean up. So handle sign in is fired in two places. It's fired on mount with the component, and then we are using AWS Hub to listen for authentication actions like sign out, sign in failure, sign out failure, sign in. So on sign in, we call this handle sign in function also in addition to when the user, or when the component actually mounts. So if the component mounts and they're already signed in, it's going to take care of setting the user. If they're not signed in, then it's going to listen for this event, and then it's going to sign them in right there. And basically what all this does is it gets the data from Cognito and it syncs it with DynamoDB. That's basically what it's doing right here. This is a little bit of a simplicity hack where to add someone to the user group, we're seeing like if this is the first or second user, that means they probably should be admins. It's kind of a an assumption, but if it's the first or second user, the application will automatically put them in the admins group. Okay, so here's a little bit of a bug with Gunnerfy. You see this error, no such file. It didn't find this the migrations. That's okay. It doesn't need to find the migrations. But let's see if it created our mutations like we wanted. Yeah, there we go. So you have create user, update user, delete user, which we actually will never use. And then we're good to go. The last thing I wanted to add here is on create user. Create new user. Remember when we defined our schema, we said they have to have a rating. Int bang means must be present, can't be null. So we have to then, when we're creating a new user, again, the user ticket was, or the user story was, as an admin, I want first-time sellers to have a 1-star rating. So we're going to put in here, when we create the user, 1. So if we go back to our code here, we should see a new user. And if it worked, which hopefully it did, we should be able to go to the home screen. And when we print this out, we should see email, and then there we go. Seller rating 1, and there's the email address. So that ticket is now complete. So what we do is we go in here and we say this status is closed. And then we go back to our Git branch and we go Git, make sure we're on the right branch. So there we are, 14069. So we Git add, Git commit, and then we just go closes. So you can just reference the ticket number, then check out your branch, and then merge the topic branch, and then delete the topic branch, and move on to your next ticket. And that's it.